Hello there, good people. Patricia here, and we are taking it to the streets today because there's a lot of activity in my house, and I need to go ahead and get a couple of videos done. So I was like, I guess we're going outside. So we take a little walk around the corner to the little park, and we're gonna see how far we get, and hopefully not have too many distractions. But in any case, we're gonna be talking about today. Ooh, one of those I probably needed to be out of the house to talk about because I need to make sure I get it all out right. Um, and I want to tell you about how recently I put myself in timeout so that I wouldn't regret what I said next. Because we all have those moments, right? So I'm gonna do a little bit of lead up on it, and then kind of like how I managed it and why it matters. Because whether it's for personal or professional, purposes, like we all have those moments when we truly need to put ourselves in timeout and take a deep breath, and probably a little bit more than that. So before we jump in, please, before we're all done here today, hit the thumbs up, the like button, subscribe, so that we can help to push out this channel. I'm really been excited about the work that I've been doing here and rebuilding and getting the message out. And I hope that you will share it with others so that more people can get involved as well. Okay, so here's the thing. Recently, there was a little, I won't even say it's a little spat. Basically, there was some disagreement going on, and I was a little peeved with how I was spoken to. So, okay, fine. And irritated about, some other stuff. And then a third party came in and was, this is all to, protect the innocent, right? But a third party came in and was like, hey, y'all probably need to work it out, both your communications, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. That irritated me, but didn't like, that was not the moment. The moment came when a statement was made that sounded very much like something I've worked really hard not to engage in anymore. And the person who said it doesn't even realize what they said, right? They really truly don't, which is another reason why I had to hold back. And we were in mixed company, so it wasn't appropriate for me to say what I was thinking right then, and probably didn't need to be said, so it was all great. But the fact that there was this comment that was made to the effect of, oh, well, you should just, how that person is, so you should just back up and just, not even engage with them because you know how they are. And that was triggering for me because I have worked so hard to stop with the people pleasing responses, and to speak up for myself more. I know some people would think, you don't speak up for yourself. I'm like, yeah, I do. However, that speaking up takes on different forms in different ways, right? What that looks like professionally can be different than what it looks like personally with family and friends, all of that. And so this was particularly challenging for me to hear and to take, and that's very triggering because it was on a more on a more personal level, where I have been working really hard to be really not just vocal but plain spoken about how I deal with certain people in my life because they were used to me not doing it, or used to me smoothing things over to make everything nice for someone. So to hear that come from this person about a totally different, person, just totally set me off. Like I was not upset. I was angry. Like the angry tears showed up, and I had to take a deep breath because that is never a good sign. If I get so upset that I'm angry, that there's tears, is like that's a warning sign for me, always has been, that there's about to be an explosion. So I had to uh, literally catch myself and shut myself down, which seems crazy since I'm talking about being outspoken out. but I knew that whatever came out of my mouth next was not going to be for anybody's good, because it absolutely would have been coming from a triggering and a very angry space. So I put myself in timeout. I cut it off. The person thought I was mad at them, whatever. I was like, yeah, I didn't even explain what the shutdown was about because I needed to go elsewhere. And I don't remember what it was I did. I may have started doing some work. I may have taken a walk. A lot of times I'll take a walk during that, but I don't think I did. But I started doing something else, removed myself from the space. I think that's what it was. Went in a different room and started working on something else. And ultimately, I did go uh, and do some journaling. That might have been the next day. And I actually journaled about the entire situation so that I could get out without a lot of back and forth. I just needed to be able to express myself and get out what I was thinking, what I was feeling, and why I was feeling that way without having to justify it to anyone. And that's really so important. And the thing is, um, for me, it was absolutely still about nervous system regulation, which is something I've been hardcore working on for a while now because, life, and I was dealing with stressful jobs, stressful family situations, just stress all kinds of ways and places. And my body finally decided, I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever, we're going to show you how we handle this. And that has been something that I have been managing and doing a lot of work to where I'm really at a celebration point where there are certain symptoms and flare ups that I had not had in an entire 6 month period. Uh, 7 months now. Are we at 7 months officially? And uh, that means continuing to work on myself and modifying how I respond in the moment to certain things. Not because I'm muting myself, because before I would be feeling angry because I'd like be upset that I'm like, I'm doing the very thing I don't want to do, which is muting myself. This is not about that anymore. This is about, mm, let let me save you. So the muting is not because I'm feeling hurt and I can't say what I'm fully capable of saying what I need to say and I'm choosing not to. That is the difference. And that is so much more empowering, right? And there will be times and cases, in your life, in your career, whenever, when someone will say something hurtful, harmful deliberately and with the intent of muting you, with the intent of trying to, quote, shut you down. And they don't really have that power over you. They can think it, but the reality is that you can have the choice. You have the choice and you can make the choice not to respond to whatever intentional harm or unintentional that is being spoken because that's your choice. And having that power and knowing that for yourself, they don't even need to know it. Because how you carry yourself and respond in that moment will will be so much more powerful for you in the long term. And you can take care of it with them if you choose to explore it more and be like, hey, let me tell you how this really went down and how I saved you from a good tongue lashing, or good cussing out, because sometimes that's what it needs to be. Um, or it doesn't have to be anything at all, because it can be a matter of you choose to dismiss it, uh, not as in like, oh, it's okay, but as in you've now set a new boundary with that person, right? And it'll show in your actions. You don't always have to show it with words, right? So there was it, and that I can talk about it now without that anger bubbling up. Before working on my nervous system regulation and energy and all of that stuff, I would have still like, this is, a couple of weeks later, and I still would have been like ready to go in. Not even bothered, not even, because I'm moving on. I'm like, I need to put that energy someplace else, and it is not into situations that I've recognized are beyond my control. So I'm not going to try to control that. Now, will I potentially correct that person at some time in the future? Possibly. I don't know. If the right time arises, I may bring it up with them and say, hey, by the way, you know, back then when you said this thing, I just need for you to know that I found it really upsetting, and this is the reason why. But I've moved on from it. But I just felt like you needed to know. I don't know if I'll do that. I may or may not. That's my choice. Because the reality is that I am in such a different mental space that I'm super proud of myself for not completely losing it in the moment. Because there was a time I absolutely would have. You'd have caught all the words, because I would have been responding out of that anger, out of that. It's somewhat misplaced, because again, that person would not even realize where that came from. And instead, for me, as a reminder to make sure that I remain true to myself when dealing with those situations. And I'm not going to, just because someone said some words that they thought does not mean that that's how I'm going to respond in kind moving forward, because it's not true. And the reason why it's so triggering for me is it takes the responsibility off of the person who's being disrespectful, who's saying things out of line, and puts the responsibility on me instead, and the pressure on me instead, to quote, just deal with it and basically let them slide because you know how they are. Yeah, I ain't doing that. So I'll just continue doing what I'm doing, which is addressing directly when a situation comes up with that person. If it makes them uncomfortable, if they don't like it, that's not my problem, right? Because the boundary is in how you treat me, and I will not allow that anymore. And that is the piece that I have been working so hard on, that has also helped to manage my stress levels, to manage my nervous system to a level where things that used to bother me a whole lot, okay, it may aggravate me or irritate me, but I'm not fixing to waste all that energy. I need all that good energy for something else, to do some, better things, stronger things, things that help strengthen me, as opposed to arguing with, you know, immature, irresponsible people about nonsensical things. I've always been the one that was good with words and their word choice, and I've just decided to be even more selective about when I utilize those words, because the reality is everything and everybody does not deserve an immediate response. Sometimes you can show people better with your actions than with your words, especially if you have someone who's argumentative. They're never wrong. They're always going to be right. It doesn't matter what you say, they're going to have something to say about it in response. And that's immaturity on their part. That's insecurity on their part. And I don't have time to deal with that. So I stop dealing with it. I say what I got to say and I move on. There we are. Right. And again, this is not about making them feel comfortable about what it is that you're saying. That's for them to work through. Just like I took my moment to go work through my response, that's what they're going to need to do. Right. So here's the thing. Um, in the moment and looking back and realizing what, if you get faced with a situation, I don't know what your situation is. We all have different things that set us off, that we find challenging. The space in which we find ourselves when it comes up matters as well. How you respond at home may be totally different to how you respond to something at work. The but the tactics, responses, whatever, can from an underlying foundational point be the same, which is to check yourself in the moment. And I don't mean check yourself as in like, oh, limit, but like manage, like, where are you mentally in that moment? If it is not in a clear space and the words that come forth are not going to be retractable, then that's when it can be as simple as, I think I'm going to end this conversation now, um, and maybe we'll come back to it later and walk away. That's a perfectly acceptable response in a work environment. It's a perfectly acceptable response at home, right? Most people aren't going to be expecting that because they're expecting you to fight back and respond. You don't have to do that. You do not have to engage. Remember, you have choices, and how you respond or not is your choice. Then, particularly if it was something that was absolutely triggering for other reasons other than the situation that was immediately before you, then I definitely encourage you to, speak with an accountability partner, go do some journaling, engage in some reflection time to kind of bring yourself down so that you can be fully aware of what it is that you found upsetting so that you can target that issue if and when you do return to it, to make sure that you're on the same page with whoever about the matter, right? So that you're not jumping all over, because we know how things happen when you have disagreements and fights. They just disintegrate into stuff that's not even on the table, right? Especially personal ones, family ones, friends, partners, spouses, all of that. So I encourage you to do that. And then also, you make the choice on whether or not you're going to go back, right? So you make the choice in the beginning of whether or not you're going to respond, of assessing your mental state at that moment, and whether it's worth the energy to expend um, in that moment. Go have your reflection time, your, pull yourself back from the ledge time, and then decide what it is you will or will not do next. And remember that those are all choices for you to make. And all of this matters because you get to make the choice from an empowered space, from an empowered um, moment, not one where you're feeling attacked, not one where you're feeling triggered by something that happened 3 years ago that suddenly resurfaced in a completely different situation now, right? You have the power to make the shift, to make the change, and to respond accordingly. And that's what I just want to remind you. It's like, you can do it. If you have to put yourself in timeout and come back to it later, that's fine. Because guess what? It takes strength to do that. It is uh, a person with great restraint and some uh, maturity to walk away from a fight, a verbal fight, a verbal triggering that does not require an answer in the moment. You get to choose. All right. So, with that, I hope that this has been helpful to someone. And I'd love to hear from you down in the comments. Share with me if you've faced this situation and what types of things do you do when you're faced with those situations, getting caught off guard with a verbal assault of things, and let me know. Meanwhile, I hope that you will remember to celebrate who you are each and every day, and remember that you have the power to decide what's next for you and to act accordingly. All right? Take care. Talk again